John Knoxville, welcome back to the podcast, or Johnny Knoxville. I don't want to get people confused, but dude, thank you for coming back on the show, man. It's been a while. We know that a lot has happened and gone down since the last time you were on, which was, what year was that, Jordan?
That was like a year and a half ago.
Was it a year and a half ago?
So that would be 2020.
Yeah.
It's been some time, dude, but thank you for coming back. There's a lot to fill people in on what's going on. Even though I would say the pandemic's over. They even stated it, right? All that stuff.
May 11th.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been over for a long time, but
Yeah.
Well, the official ruling, right, is that which I mean, it essentially is just going to be that the emergency, situation, it's going to. I think May 11th was the date that they're saying that it's going to be done. And I mean, obviously, it's not been a thing for a while. I feel like.
Yeah, I think I mean, for me, it didn't really ever start. I'm an avid researcher, right? Yeah. I like to expand my mind and look at things outside of the box. And so for me, it wasn't that, I guess you could say I didn't allow the government to tell me that I had to wait till May 11th, 2.5 years of destroying people's lives for it to be over. That's just me.
Weird concept. It's a weird concept.
The amount of power that we give to our overlords,
It's a lot, dude. To kind of keep people informed, the last time you were on, were you off on unpaid leave? Or were you still working?
I'm trying to think. I'd have to know that I got put off December 1st of 2021.
2021.
So,
when you say put off, was that paid leave or unpaid leave?
I was put off leave with no pay.
Wow.
And there was about roughly 150, 160 of us that were put off at that time in the same fashion. So I don't remember where, the exact date when I was on, if everything was ramping into that position. It probably was. I don't think I had been put off yet.
Okay.
So fast forward to that date, we got put off because we were non-compliant with the city's vaccine mandate that said either, vaccinate or be terminated.
Yeah.
They came out and said that, you could put on a religious or a medical exemption as well. And our stance on that was that exemptions, our rights are given to us at birth. They're granted to us, right? They're given to us by God.
Yeah.
And the founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights enshrine those, right? They protect those rights that are God-given.
Yeah.
And so we are given an exemption at birth for religion, right? I don't need to put in a religious exemption. What the stance that I take and that we have taken as well is that asking for an exemption means that you agree with them and their system, that it's okay for you, Tim Fisher, to tell me what to do with my body, what I can put into my body, what medical experiment, what drugs, so on and so forth, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm asking to opt out of that this time. And so I highly disagree with that. I was born exempt. God gives me my rights, that I have the ability to practice my religion. I don't need to ask you, because of my beliefs, to opt out of your system. I'm not giving you permission to tell me what I can and can't do with my body. And so you also have that space where now they can say, okay, we're going to let you opt out this time. Mm-hmm. But then now you've got, the donkey variant or whatever the next thing is, right? We have monkeypox. We've got, you name whatever emergency they want to claim, and they can come back and say, well, guess what? This thing's so much more deadly, we're going to pull that exemption. And now you're stuck in the same exact space because you gave them that power
right
over you.
That's interesting you say that. So on here, at least me, I'll say, I don't care people's, political views, whatever. Mm-hmm. You can be who you want. We should be able to agree to disagree. But I just know on the Democratic Party, right, there's, it's definitely the fight for females and abortion, right? My body, my choice,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to make that stance, you're going to have to stick by that stance. If it's your body, your choice, then why are we letting go of people in certain cities and certain government workers for not getting the COVID vaccine? Because it's their body, their choice, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the conundrum in itself. Is that there was this kind of this like illusion of choices, the illusion of this, because it really, I mean, as far as the propaganda machine, they did a very good job of splitting everyone up, right? And even though, like you said, which is a great point, Tim, is that, because if we said party association lines, it would be more left Democrat was very for the vaccination, the implementation of, if you don't get it, you can't go to work, you got to stay inside, all this stuff, kind of following those rules, which is very ironic because, for a group that typically will support the more social sides of stuff of personal choice and what you want to do with your body, this was like kind of a weird timing where you kind of had a party swap, really. In that case, as far as not being able to be told what you said. And, it's fascinating. I think I shouldn't say fascinating. It's terrible what happened with the case. Obviously it's terrible for people impacted that lost people. It's terrible for people that lost their jobs. It's terrible that, the issues with whether it's kids not being able to go to school and the social implications and everything that comes from that. But it's like, that was only a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Right. And then now if you turn the television on, it's about Ukraine or about, these other things, and it's like we kind of just, as a society, everyone just kind of packed up and moved forward when there's still all these gaping holes of problems that are in the aftermath of this. And, it's a bizarre scenario.
Yeah, it is. But it's by design, so when you said a lot of things to unpack there. The first thing you were talking about was my body, my choice, right? So that's great. And I agree. It's not my position to whether I agree or disagree with abortion, right?
Yeah.
That's a woman's choice. Yeah. Now, we can make the argument that you're taking a life.
Yes.
And so, but this is a whole different topic, right? So let's just stay on the topic of freedom to choose what you do with your body, right?
Yeah.
I use that because it's true. It's my body. You don't have the right to tell me what medical experimentation or what I have to do. Well, I was told multiple times, you need to stop saying that. The city council does not like that. And I'm like,
that doesn't make any sense.
I don't care what the city council likes. I'm not here to please them. I'm here to speak truth, right? And it's okay for you to say that if you want to take a child's life or an unborn, person, but I can't say it. I don't want to submit to this. So, there's that aspect. But then, you started talking about how they want to divide us with all these different things. That's their job. If they can drive a wedge, look at back throughout history here. We've got racial division. We've got male and female gender division. We've got sexual orientation division. Now we have 62 different pronoun divisions. We've got, you name it. Everything is to split people apart and to keep us so that we're arguing with each other instead of looking what's going on over here, right? This is what the puppet master does. They look at this shiny object over here while I'm taking your wealth. I'm creating all these nefarious things and you're not paying attention to it because you and we're the same. I don't care if you're African-American or Mexican or whatever you are. If you're a Martian, it doesn't matter. The point being is, well, maybe a Martian because you're not a human, I guess, at that point. We're all human beings, right? So we all bleed the same color and we live on the same planet, breathe the same air. We all do the same thing. So there should be no division. We've got class division, social, you name it. It's like, stop it, man. We don't all have to have the same ideas. That's what makes us great, right? And that's what makes this country great.
What makes America great.
And so we can agree to disagree.
Yes.
One of the things I've always said is that when you look back at history in the 1700s and stuff, they used to meet down at the pub, right? And they'd talk about the goings on of the day over a pint of beer, and you could talk about sex and religion and whatever it was. It didn't, and politics. Those are the three taboo things, right? You talk about those and you're shunned.
Yeah,
well, there's a reason, because it allows us to exchange ideas, and their whole plan is to keep us divided, keep us segregated, and keep us afraid to talk to each other. Because when we share ideas, what happens? We threaten their power structure. Think about it. It's going to be 14 days, right, to curve this. Lock in your house. Could you ever imagine Americans doing that? And then we're going to put a mask on you, because what does that do? It symbolizes that you're subservient. It symbolizes that somebody has power over your voice. It allows, because like when we communicate, it's not only verbal, but it's facial, right? So think about all the kids that had to wear masks. You look at the studies now, what's happened, their learning has slowed, right? They're having difficulty with speech patterns and so on and so forth. It's all designed to stifle our communication process, to allow them to move whatever they want to move forward, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that you said there that, you know, I mean, I don't have numbers. So most of this stuff, like as far as personal deal, whether it's job related, so a lot of this is anecdotal, but to kind of key in on a little bit with like the youth, right? And I think the masking thing and the, you know, having to lock out, not to go into school, limited social interaction. I think we're starting, and this is very quick, but I think we're already starting to see things in that way of having more problems moving forward, you know, and I won't use any references, specifics, but in my line of work, you know, or I should say our line of work, just something that I've noticed is that we respond a lot to psychiatric behavioral emergencies more than I ever have in my entire career. Now, that may be a coincidence. I like to use that word very, very loosely because everything seems to be tied in with a coincidence term now. But I will say, and like we were actually talking about it the other day, but it's just like, I'm like, man, another, you know, 18-year-old, 20-year-old, 24-year-old, 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 20-year-old, you know, psychiatric behavioral issues that most of these people didn't have issues up until the last 3 years. And, you know, obviously everyone varies and that's a gray area subject matter. But if you had to tie in one catalyst that has affected the world time in the similar timeline, it's very easy to be like, okay, well, you know, this didn't help, I think, at least you can say at the least, right? So we're kind of in this position, right, where it's like we're moving forward, but there's still, like I said, there's these holes and gaps that need to be filled. You know, it's like, what are they going to do for the impacted personnel? And I hope we can get into that a little bit.
Absolutely.
With you, because you were saying that you're currently still not back. Or I don't know.
Yeah, I think you should probably clarify. We'll let you put that out there because I think I might know the answer. But your status now with
your business, I don't know.
So. I am still an employee of the City of Los Angeles Fire Department. I've been employed there almost 23 years as a firefighter paramedic. And I am still off duty, leave no pay, 500 and I think it's 25 days, something like that. But who's counting?
Oh my God.
So.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, hopefully moving forward, there could be some clarity to that situation. You know, but
yeah, it's been, you know, COVID, I mean, people think COVID's over. It's not. But people get tired of hearing that, and I understand that. But what's interesting to me, you know, it was horrible in a lot of aspects, right? We can all agree on that for a multitude of reasons, whether people are, you know, sick, dying, the wrecking of the economy, loss of jobs, families torn apart, you know, the multitude of things that have happened throughout that. But in reality, I look at it as I think it was probably the best thing that's ever happened to humankind. And that's a big statement. To me, COVID was a Trojan horse that epically failed. And, you know, we could talk about where it came from and all of those things, those issues. But if I'm just saying it's a Trojan horse and how it failed, to me, what I see out of COVID and the silver lining is that it allowed people to wake up and realize the matrix that you've been sitting in. It brought to light pretty much every issue that people didn't want to look at, and has engaged people. It allowed you to realize that even though, you know, the United States is probably one of the freest places in the world, we're still living under the illusion of freedom versus really truly being free. It has, I mean, you think about it, it showed all the flaws in the schooling system, right?
Yeah.
In education.
Yeah.
For people who have kids, you know, now they're locked in at home, they're doing Zoom school, and all of a sudden, parents are like, wait a minute, what you're learning, when did this become okay? And there's a multitude of topics that you could go down that parents had no idea was happening. And they saw the rot that's happening inside of the school system and school boards and so on and so forth. And in every aspect of COVID, it really just woke, I think, the sleeping giant up. And to me, it's allowed people to realize that when you abdicate your sovereignty and you sit back in that place of comfort and you're like, okay, you know, I know my work's stressful and I'm going to come home and I just want to crack open a beer and watch Dancing, you know, with the Stars or football all weekend or whatever it is, you know, smoke a little more weed or whatever, and you're disconnected as a citizen, right? You're allowing that control structure to pretty much drive you off the cliff, right? And we end up where we sit now. Everybody is trying to scratch their head and figure out what happened.
Yeah.
Well, as people, human beings, we fell asleep at the wheel and we gave control to this very small group of individuals, and really now it's engaged those people. You're seeing moms losing their minds over what their children are learning in school. They're stepping up and running for school boards. You know, dads are getting involved again in, you know, in their kids' sports and their kids' lives. You've realized how your communication structure is broken down. I mean, we can look in the fire service at where we sit and what we do and how it's epically failed at every level.
Yes.
You know, so I think it's allowed people to see these flaws and really to step into that space of change, because no one's coming to save us, right? You're waiting for some politician to step into that space. It's not going to happen. We are the people here to save ourselves.
That's something I feel like we've made a couple comments like this over a few shows, but it's interesting, you know, and I feel like what you're saying, like as far as the with it being an epic failure being a good thing for society moving forward, you know, it doesn't mean the people who are hurting. It doesn't mean that that's good, but like you said, opening the eyes of people to understand that the politicians, the people that are in government that, you know, maybe years ago that you just kind of go, hey, you know, hopefully they do good and they're super smart and they've done this their whole lives, and have this kind of like accepted, like they're just going to do what they're going to do, right? The reality is that those are people.
Yeah.
You know, they're just like you and I. You know, they're, you know, maybe some have a little bit background differentials or maybe a little bit different education, but at the end of the day, when you step into that position, they're just another person.
Yeah.
So we have to stop looking at things as in like, oh, they're the miracle worker of that position. It's like, if they suck, get them out. You know, that's why this country is great. We do have the opportunity to vote and weigh in heavily on those that we want to represent us. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, that's, I mean, we can get into all of this, but that's why, like, I'm just like, I want term limits. I want different things, you know, where it's like, you can't have a 50-year politician who's consistently sucked, but they always seem to get it because they have people fooled, you know, and hopefully that through this process that people have the understanding of that. And it's just like, you know what, like, hey, if this isn't working, let's change it up. Or, hey, it could be you, you know, like if you're inspired so much, and, you know, there's a lot of people I feel like have come forward, and, you know, we've talked to a handful of folks that like, they never thought they would be running for an assembly or running for a Congress or anything like that. And it's like, and that's what it takes to change the system, you know, and hopefully we can get those representations of just to try it out, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, I mean, since this has happened, I've traveled all over the country, spoke at, all kinds of
Oh, no, I
events.
love it, dude. It's amazing. We've been watching. I've been watching. I'm like, dude, go get them, boys.
Yeah, seriously.
And that's nothing I ever thought would I never woke up one morning and go, yeah, I want to be a public speaker. Or, yeah, I want to, travel the country and, whatever, enlighten people on chaos and whatever.
Yeah.
But out of that, I think one of the biggest things I've learned is, and especially, from our position, we're first responders and people have respect for that. A lot of the things that we say, we deal with every situation. I mean, we're problem solvers, right? When we get on scene, we don't have another 911 that we can call, right? So our job is to mitigate somebody's issue that day. Could be the worst day of their life, even though their toilet, that's all they called for is the plumbing. It's So we handle that and we go in there in with a heart of service, right? So people really have trust in what we do and who we are, and we have a platform where we have the ability to speak at a different level than anyone else, and we're not looked at as conspiracy theorist or some tinfoil hat, whatever, because a lot of these things, if you've never been exposed to them, they can sound pretty far out there. But at the same time, again, for me, I've done a lot of research over the past 30 plus years on a lot of different topics, and to be able to go out and speak from the heart to people, from any walk of life is really, to me, fantastic, because I don't always want to talk about doom and gloom. We have to look at things. We get stuck in victim mentality, right? Yeah. And so for me to be able to go out and speak and actually bring hope to people, right? Inspire them. I mean, that's really what we should try to be doing right now. Not even try, we should be doing, right? Because try to me is a bad word. It gives you the option to pull that ripcord when things get hard, right? Like, there's the hatch door. I tried it. No, screw that. Let's just go out and do this. Let's be better people and inspire people to move into the space of making that change, and everybody, we all have these special gifts, right? God gives us all special gifts. You might be able to, I don't know, underwater basket weave and do whatever. And, everybody has something. We're unique. So why not take whatever that talent is you have and make the world a better place, right?
Yeah.
And because that's how we create change, right?
Yeah.
We stand up and we step into that space. I mean, you don't have to be out there on a front line fighting something. You don't have to, you could just speak to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Do kind acts, right? And those little things have ripple effects, whether it's the pond or the butterfly effect, whatever. Those things all create change. And the only way to change the disaster that we're in is to step out of that victimhood mentality. And instead of saying, why are these things happening to me, right? Well, look at it maybe as, wow, why are these things happening for me? What can I learn out of this?
Changing the narrative, right?
Exactly, right? You change the narrative, you change the direction.
Yeah.
And so, as a fire captain, somebody maybe promoted recently, I won't mention any names, but, people think that when they move up, they're going to change the world. Well, maybe not in that broad of a sense. You can control the things, like for me, what I can control is myself. I can control my emotions and the way I react to people, right? I can't make anyone else do anything. I can't control their emotions. I can't control what they're doing. So, I control my space that I have, my four walls inside of my home and what I do. As a fire captain, you've got your four walls and your guys, and you can impress on them good morals and values and those types of things and show them what true leadership looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because that's really what we're missing here in the world right now is leadership, real leadership.
Accurate, very accurate. Very accurate. I think it's a sad time right now. I would say just in general for our country, but at least in the jobs that we do, right? Los Angeles Fire Department, from what I understand, like me coming through the fire service as an explorer and then going to the Forest Service and all things it did to get hired, right? it's always like, hey, did you apply for LAFD? Did you
Mm-hmm.
apply for LA County? Those are, I mean, even your union number is super old, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how those union numbers are. It's like how when you first came in, right?
Yep.
And I'd never thought I would see, at least in my lifetime, the day when LAFD would change so much that they would terminate their firefighters because of a vaccine. And I think it's a sad day. You're seeing a huge shift in the fire service. It's becoming more political when it shouldn't be. We're here to help others, give others a second chance, like you said, right? It doesn't matter if it's your leaking toilet, like you said, or your family member is in a life-threatening situation. Your house is on fire. We got to cut you out of a car. We show up, and we will do whatever it takes to help you, protect you, even if it means laying down our life. That's why we signed on the dotted line.
Yep.
And to go in and do that and to risk so much of ourselves, our life, of our families, our futures, and then because of vaccine, you just terminate us. What a slap in the face.
Yeah.
It's almost like a betrayal. And I don't remember this person's name, but there was recently I don't know if you call it a trial, right? You had 3 chiefs. It was 3 chiefs, and I don't know I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I know I'm drawing a blank.
Board of Rights.
The Board of Rights, right?
And we've had several, but the most recent was just last week. What's today? So it was, last week. So it was Wednesday, I believe it was. Anyway, engineer Matt Mamone, 15-year firefighter.
Right.
Engineer. So he basically is standing in the same space that I was, or am, and did not put in an exemption for the same reasons. Also, there's a lot that goes into this. Our union has said that they have never made an agreement with the city that the mandate is okay, and we know that we have an MOU or a contract, right? Our union is the bargaining agent for us, and so the union president has stated verbally to me and many others multiple times that no, they never made an agreement with the city that this is not okay. They stated that the city stepped away in bad faith and gave the last best final offer. I have that in writing as well from other members on the board. And so what the city is hanging their hat on is that this is a condition of employment. Well, in order to change my condition of employment, you have to go to collective bargaining, and then that has to be agreed upon. There has to be a letter of agreement. All of these things have to happen in labor law for that to happen. And the city just throws their hat on, this is an emergency, we're doing whatever we want. And like what I've stated to the union multiple times is that if that's the case, the city has the ability at any time to declare anything an emergency and can step in and change your condition of employment at any time. So what is the purpose of the union at that point? There is no reason for you to bargain because it's just they're going to do as they please. So for us, it's an illegal change of our working condition.
Absolutely is illegal.
Like I've stated before regarding exemptions, so on and so forth. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And so, Engineer Mamone was standing in that space. And, one of the other things as well is, they can put you off if they want to terminate you and or discipline you. But in the state of California, as you guys know, we have what's called Skelly.
Right.
So Skelly was a doctor in, I believe it was 1975, that was terminated without due process. And he sued the state, Skelly versus Labor Commission, I think it was. Anyway, and he got his job back and got all of these Skelly rights put into place. And one of those, there's a whole due process section, but it was basically that they have to give you what's called a Skelly packet. And in that, before they discipline you, and would be in that would be the charges that are being put up against you. And then they have to give you the ability to refute that and state why it is. And then they have to give you the proposed discipline. And so at that point, if you go and you can either respond to that in writing or you can show up at an actual Skelly hearing. At that point, they make their decision, and then if you don't agree with their decision, then you can request to go to a Board of Rights. And that's what Engineer Mamone had. But the problem is that they never gave him a Skelly packet before disciplining him. So, or any of us. They just put us off leave with no pay. And that again, because of Skelly, we have a substantial property right to our job, meaning just like you and your house, right? If you don't make the payments, you have to go through this whole process before they can foreclose on it. And, they give you these different, same thing with this. They can't just take your job and your livelihood away from you. They give you the Skelly packet, you go through that. And if they are going to put you off, then they have to put you off leave with pay until you go and you pick your Board of Rights, the chiefs that are going to sit on there. At that point, then they put you off leave no pay, and in 10 days they have to start their trial. So none of that happened. So all of that was illegal. They've violated Supreme Court ruling on Skelly. We also have the Firefighter Bill of Rights in the state of California, which CPF took 21 years or whatever to get that instituted. And that deals with Skelly and, discipline and due process and all of that. They violated that as well. They violated our city charter that specifically lays out all the disciplinary procedures. They didn't do any of that. And they hang it on the hat that it's not discipline, it's a condition of employment. That doesn't make any sense.
But how could? Okay, I'm not a legal expert, but there's a lot of there's a lot of questions that come with that, right? Because it's like, I guess the real underlying question is how far can the gray area get pushed when you run under emergency, basically any kind of emergency scenario for legislation or for how departmental laws are going to be changed, or maybe stymied to do whatever they want to do because it's clearly what happened. And it's like, okay, like you don't do any past practice because there hasn't been a past practice of this technically, right? Most vaccination requests or parameters are set on first terms of hiring, which is standard across every public entity, right? So it's like, okay, you were okay here. We can use this other gentleman, for example, 15 years in the service, and has probably done he has done everything that he's supposed to do in the entire time frame of being 15 years, which is, he hit the halfway point on being vested for, the long-term career or the 30-year career, if you will. And now they let him go on a stipulation in a time period that, whether or not the city was like, hey, we want everyone vaccinated, which is clearly what they're trying to do. You can say whatever those influences are, whether it's finances or because they, quote unquote, really care. At the end of the day, it's like, and I think we might have actually talked about this last time when we were talking about like exemptions, right? And I like your explanation of exemptions because it's once you do that, you're committing that you actually agree with them, but you're trying to find a scapegoat, right?
Yes.
But those exemptions are even so unclear because I believe, and I'm not going to say LA at the time, but I've talked with other people within different departments that had those similar things where there was religious or medication wise, but there was like you had only been able to go, like you might get off like, okay, you can do it for 2 months and then you got to get reevaluated. And what's fascinating with that one is it's the religious one. You're like, okay, so you're going to talk to me again in 2 months. Like, am I going to be any less or more religious? Like, who constitutes that? What do those questions look like? What's the grading rubric on that?
Yeah.
It's basically like, oh yeah, they seem like a, devout whatever.
And we asked that question.
And I'm assuming you got a very vague answer. Seems
or no answer.
Or no answer, yeah.
Is that crickets I'm hearing? You're telling me that there's a panel that's going to review these. Well, under Title VII, there is no review. You put your exemption in, and they have to grant it. It's how are you to tell me what my sincere belief is?
Right.
Right. That's. I could be worshiping literally a dandelion. I sincerely believe that this is, whether that's Gaia theory or whatever you want to. It doesn't matter. It's my sincerely held belief. Right. Belief. And so, and that's been won at the Supreme Court, right? So,
oh yeah, there's precedent set on that.
Yeah. So for them to say, and then they wanted to step into the space of okay, we're reviewing these, and now we want you to come in front of a board and give us, we're going to ask you these questions. That's none of your business.
Right.
Period. End story. So, we didn't get an answer. And instead what they did is they went and they denied everyone.
Oh, just blanket.
Blanket
really?
denial on
Okay.
all exemptions, except there was one person that got theirs done. But they denied our head chaplain.
Get out of here. The chaplain.
The chaplain. The head chaplain
so
of the
crazy,
LAFD.
dude.
And if there's anyone, he seems like
right.
the one guy that you'd be like, he's probably the most religious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, he obviously has a sincerely held religious belief.
That's what he feels called to do, right? Be a
right.
chaplain.
Okay, exactly. So, that's like denying the Pope, you
Right.
know, or whoever. It's nonsense. So,
What is nonsense, right? Because the day and age we're in right now, people can identify to be whoever they want, and if we don't play along or we don't agree with it, we're bigots. You get canceled. You see all this stuff. But if somebody has exemption that's from something they believe, now we have to switch it again and say no. It seems so. It's so two-sided and flip-flop. Doesn't make any sense. It seems so unfair, and that's why I want to bring on here and talk about this because, I want to say we talked about this earlier, but in New York,
yes.
New York City, there was a case when this, I would say, set precedence now, right? All of the city workers, fire, trash, whatever you do, who were let go because they didn't get vaccinated, the judge ordered they get their jobs back and back pay. So my thought is, I'm thinking here, okay, here's a court case now in our country that has set precedence that says you can't do that. So how is that playing anything that's happening now? Because shouldn't that be a glaring flag for the city to see, like, hey, these people over here in New York just got all their jobs back. We might want to backpedal here a little bit because this could come to us.
Well, again, you're using common sense and rational thinking.
Right.
So, and I haven't seen any of that from the city of Los Angeles, unfortunately. If that had been the case, then I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So that's happened across all over the country. I mean, Chicago, they declared that it was unconstitutional, and they were ordered to rehire everyone as well. So, last week I was just, excuse me, I've got an itch.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Might be an earwig or something in there. Those creepy little bugs. I hate them.
Please don't say that. I'm not good with bugs.
I know. So I can run into a burning building, but I don't like earwigs.
I don't
Right?
like that.
Same,
I don't like bugs, man. I don't like bugs. I'm out.
So just last week, we have a lot of partners at Firefighters for Freedom. We have a lot of groups that we work with, and one of them is PERC, which is Protecting the Educational Rights for Kids. And they deal with, all these Senate bills and mandates and schools and so on and so forth. But they also stepped into the space during this and brought on lawsuits. And one of our chapters in San Diego, Firefighters for Freedom out of San Diego, PERC stepped into the space with them and filed a lawsuit against the city of San Diego. And they were denying their exemptions, so on and so forth. They had the mandate. And the Police Officers Association as well stepped in. And that is truly the only union that I know that has been in this fight, like in the fight. They stood behind their officers and walked that space. And so I think the police officers lost about 600 people that left, not fired, but they left because of this, retired or went to other departments. And I think their fire department lost about 100 or so. But again, those are big numbers when you're looking at, San Diego's not a massive city. So anyway, fast forward, they were going to deny all their exemptions, and they were getting ready to go to court on that. And then the city didn't want to go to court and granted their exemptions because they knew that's a losing battle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the amount of dollars that would have cost the city in Title VII lawsuits and so on and so forth. So but they still kept the mandate in place. But they said, you guys can go to work. So then people went back to work. And then I think it was in January, they're coming up, I think it was March of this year, they were supposed to go to court again over the mandate issue. And the city came back and went to, they're using the same attorneys we recommended them, and came to the attorneys and said, we want to meet. So they met and they said, what do we have to do here? We don't want to go to court. And so they struck the mandate down. So San Diego City just had their mandate repealed.
What happens when you stand for something? Stand for what's right, what's legal.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
you get a fight. There's only so long the house of cards will crumble, right? You tell a lie long enough, and it starts to become truth. But when you're telling so many lies, what happens?
You get lost.
You get lost.
Oh, you
right?
get lost in your lives. Yeah.
So it's easier just to stand in that space of truth, right? And so what we're seeing now is that the house of cards is falling everywhere. Mm-hmm. The city of San Diego did not want to be put on the stand, did not want to be deposed. We just had unfortunately, we've been suing on the constitutionality of mandates, right? Mm-hmm. And so fast forward, we've hit brick walls because we had a judge that was...
I didn't think about it. That matters. The judge matters.
Absolutely.
Really
and it really shouldn't. It should be unbiased, right?
You would think.
We have a court system where your political views should not step into this, because we're not left or right what we're doing. We're here about personal freedom and choice. That's who we are, right?
Yeah.
I could care less if you're a Democrat or Republican, independent, Green Party, if you're black, white, purple, green. It doesn't matter. None of those differences matter. Do you believe in being a sovereign human being with your God? Your rights are given to you at birth.
Right.
They don't come from the government. So if you believe that and you want to stand in that space of freedom, then we're here for you. That's what we believe in, and that's what we're pushing for. This isn't about the shot. This is about preserving our liberty and our freedoms and maintaining those, right?
Thank you. It's not about the shot.
It's not.
And that's like kind of the unfortunate part of, like, when you do have like larger scale conversation with people that maybe don't know a lot about the backstory in this, right? Is that it's very easy for this to get pumped up and be like, oh, it's just a bunch of people who don't want to follow the rules. And it's like, no, this is not about that at all. This is about that, like, just as much as if you feel like you want to have whatever, whether it's we're talking about vaccinations or choices and things like that. It's like, I feel that you should be able to do what you want to do in that safe space, right? Just like, if I don't want to be vaccinated and want to do that, I would hope that you'd feel confident in me within that safe space, right? And so I think the real kind of push is that it's like you had the overreach of we'll use the government in this way, as that they were determining what or what not is the safe space, right? And how that gets implemented and pushed down, which is where larger departments doing mandates and those things. So when you're at work or you're talking about people, it's not like, someone who does not want to do it, they're going to work, they're doing their job, they're putting their life on the line, they're treating people with respect, they're doing, like I said, whether it's fixing plumbing or you're saving a baby, whatever, either way, your approach is the same, because you have that call to feel like you want to impact the community around you, and you surround yourself with people who feel the same way. So it's like this whole thing has been a weird way to like kind of segregate that group. It was like the group that does stand together, that's there to help with whoever it is, whether they agree or not. So it's like, as this moves forward, hopefully, and I didn't know that about San Diego City. That's fantastic news. Yeah. And again, like it's funny because it's like, your common sense, right? So it's like LA City, or, it's like San Diego, Chicago, friggin' New York, which are generally very, liberal areas for city legislation and whatnot. For those places to even turn around, it's very, very surprising to hear that LA is holding to what they originally are stuck with. And it's like you get into the why question, right? Why is it really? With all the information that we know, and and I'm not saying that everything is fact, because I think the one thing we can agree with is that no one really knows, but we have good ideas, because it's like you listen to one thing, it says one thing, and then you go on the other and you're like, oh, and by the way, I just heard this the other day. I was listening to Joe Rogan had a doctor on his podcast, and I'm not going to try to say his name because I'll butcher it, but it's a very, very bright individual, and he was throwing out some numbers as far as updates with VAERS reporting and vaccine injuries and, you know, the increase of inflammation markers and myocarditis and stuff. There's a very, all I got out of that is that there's a very hard argument to say that whether, you know, the people pushing this really knew if it was safe or not. Right. And then everything was pushed along those lines. So it's like, whether you did or didn't, hey, you know, move on, be happy. I want you to be healthy and do what you need to do. But I think we're in a position now more than ever, you know, and I agreed with this statement anyway from the beginning, but you have to do what's best for you. And if you live a happy, healthy life and you take care of the people around you and you do that, I think, you know, you can still show up to work. Mm-hmm. You can still be smart about things, you know, and I'm not saying, you know, I mean, I don't know. I'm probably a bad person because I'll sound like a hypocrite right now if I'm saying like that I agreed with anything, because I really didn't from the get-go. But I just think that we're still talking about it, and there's still implications for individuals that represent different departments that are still either not able to go back to work or they're getting run through the ringer still. And it's like, holy crap, dude. Like, when are we going to be over this? Like, it's like, you know, you have people that want to be back to work, and that work is helping others. Yes. You know, in a time more than ever, and you're stopping that process. Like, how dare you?
Well, in a time too, you know, when we're having hard times filling the ranks, even getting new hires, which I read the other day, right? You have two big departments, LA County, LA City.
Yes.
Hiring. LA County gets a lot of applications, and it sounded like there was lower numbers for firefighter paramedics for LAFD.
Yeah, so I don't have hard numbers, but from talking with the people that are, you know, in those spaces, it sounds like, you know, LA County had about 1,500 people show up for their application test or whatever and I believe it's for a lateral position.
Okay,
like a paramedic. Well, yeah, I know, right? You remember the days of 20,000 people?
Yeah, dude. Like, you showing up for 5,000 people are doing interviews. Right, you know, that's not even just the application process.
Yeah, so it's times change. But it's my understanding, you know, we're struggling staffing-wise in our department. So I believe we had somewhere between 100 and 150 people from our department go for the lateral.
That's a hit,
okay,
dude.
so that's a big hit,
That's
especially
a very big hit.
when you're talking in the firefighter paramedic rank.
Or yeah, I was going to say, as in the medic rank, that's a massive hit.
So, you know, there's that issue, and then, you know, we're trying to hire our I mean, the classes, you know, I guess maybe, I can't remember the last numbers, maybe we had 60 people in there and 30 passed, right, or whatever. You know, we're running people through 2 and 3 towers now,
which is unheard of,
right?
Unheard of, dude.
And then, you know, now they've put into place what's called the emergency appointed paramedic program. We want to hire you, if you're not a firefighter, or even if you are, we want you to come on as a single function paramedic. And then
what? When did that happen?
It's happening now.
Okay, didn't that happen in the 90s?
No, it happened, late 2000. That's how I got hired. I got hired as a single function paramedic.
But you still had to go through a process. It wasn't like what they're doing now, right? A little bit different?
No, it was an expedited process.
Okay.
You went through, and then you went through just a shortened tower, which was basically on LA County and cities EMS protocols, and then the department's protocols and, you know, rules and regs and that kind of stuff, so that you could function inside of the department as a single function paramedic. And then later they were going to cross train you. So I got cross trained, you know, year and a half
Is that
later.
going to be the same for this new program?
It's called the EAP, so emergency appointed paramedic. So I haven't spoken to anyone in that space but I mean, they already have the model. They did it before for 3 classes. They hired 150 paramedics that way.
Okay.
Back in 2000, 2001. So, and then they cross-train you later. Now, whether they'll cross-train you or if you just want to stay a single function, I don't know what they're going to do in that aspect. No idea. But we got, out of running that program, we got 8 people.
8
What?
people for the single function paramedic?
That's
my God.
that's the numbers.
That should speak volumes. That should speak volumes across the board.
We've got 100 to 150 that want to leave, and then we have 8 that we're going to put through this tower.
That's not going to work.
So, I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, and I'm definitely, don't have a degree in applied mathematics, but those numbers are nonsense.
They don't work.
8, yeah, no,
don't
8's
work.
bad.
Yeah.
And that's there's so many. I have a conversation like this the other day. I really feel like the public service industry, as far as the next generational group of labor force, is not as interested in this field as it once was. And, and I'm not a knock to this job. I love it. And I enjoy helping people. I mean, obviously if you work with me, maybe there's certain days that I probably don't appear that way.
This goes for all of us.
We all
Because
have
I've been on
those
for
days.
5 days in a row and I'm exhausted. But, I think at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know what the next step is, but I think that also has to do with like why these low numbers keep turning up. It's because it's not as like this glamorous type of, and not that people don't respect it, but I just think it's like if you had if you went to a sixth grade class and you said, "Hey, who here wants to be a doctor?" You might get 2 or 3 hands. Who wants to be a scientist? Maybe 1 or 2, and then like who wants to be a firefighter? You probably get 1. And probably no cops, to be honest with you. But, and that's not a dig on the police force. I love them. But, it's just the appeal, right? Because of all the things that have gone on and talked about and how things, when you turn TV on, I mean, probably the only thing keeping little kids into the fire department and police is Paw Patrol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, that still seems cool,
Yeah.
And, hopefully that changes because it is definitely a need. You take advantage of the people that want to help. And put, not that everyone needs to be put on a pedestal. I don't mean that at all, but I mean, there is a respect level to it, and it takes a unique individual to do, I would say, what we do. And, and so it's like, that, I don't know, I guess I forgot where I was going with this, but I just hope that, moving forward that it does come back and we do have that, because then you can kind of get into the arguments of like, well, quality of individual that being hired and what's that, expertise level, it's like, if we want to be the best, we got to be, to help the best we can. You want the best people to be in those positions.
Well, and that's where, to me, and this is John Knox speaking, this isn't Firefighters for Freedom. This is where there's a massive flaw, right? And it starts in the educational system. So, kids come through the educational system, they're taught, whatever there is going on in schools these days. But you're told that getting a college degree, you have to get it, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's just a business model. Colleges has become a business, right? I mean, I know when college was around when I was there, and, it didn't cost you $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, right? You come out in debt as a slave, right? And so to be a firefighter takes a very special, unique person. You really need to have an outgoing personality. You need to be on fire, pretty much an A-type personality. And society today doesn't like A-type personalities. And, to me, we should be going to the farms, right? You want a farmer's kid because they get up early in the morning, they get all their chores done.
Discipline.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have to be asked to do everything. If the tractor breaks, they go out and they fix it. So they understand basic mechanics, right? They understand all these different things. They're problem solvers, right? You need to look for those issues instead. And this isn't a dig on anyone going to college or anything. We're going and recruiting chiefs at this point, right? We're looking for people with, excuse me, with a degree in sociology or in communications or whatever, but those individuals have zero life experience.
Yeah.
Most of them in this day and age don't, when you ask somebody to go get you the Phillips head screwdriver, the question that was returned to me was, is that the plus or the minus? I'm like, wait a minute, we got a problem. Go get the metric crescent wrench and the flux capacitor along with the blinker fluid too. Okay, come back and then we can talk.
Yeah, we need some rotor wash to start the helicopter.
Right. So, but those are crucial things, right?
Yeah.
Because we deal in emergency situations and we deal with, you have to be very aggressive in certain things. You have to, right? And
Oh
you
my
have
gosh,
to be able to, we make split decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to understand how a building's deconstructing, right? Because we're going into it or we're whatever, and it's not even just a fire. I mean, we get individuals that step into that space and they're like, we go on a I'm thinking of a person in general that was a rookie that we went on a cardiac arrest. We came back to the station. I could see they were visibly shaken. And I'm like, you all right? Well, I've never seen a dead person before. I didn't know that this is what we did. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Who recruited you? How did you?
You see it every day, buddy.
Right. I mean, multiple times a day, right?
Oh, yeah.
Death and destruction and the underbelly of society
violence,
is what we see, right?
Yeah.
And no one should ever see those things and have to deal with them. But we've stepped into that space, right?
Yeah.
And so for someone coming into the job that's never been exposed to anything, right? They've only lived with their parents, they've gone to school, maybe lived in a dorm or something. And then somebody recruited them, said, you'd be a great candidate. The benefits are outstanding. You know, you get a good retirement, blah, blah, blah. And then they show up and they're not prepared and it wrecks them. You know, I mean, and you guys, I guarantee you'll agree, it wrecks us.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. I was gonna say it's not just the new people; it's everybody. Yeah.
But that point being, when you have someone who's that A-type personality and knows, man, this is what I'm stepping into, you fare a little better, right, than the person that now they're traumatized and they're like, I can't do this. I'm quitting. You know, and now they're dealing with that one incident that's wrecked them, and now they got to go out and figure out what they're going to do again, right?
Yeah.
And so that whole space of what we're creating now, we just started a whole new bureau, DEI. You know, that's the big buzzword right now. And, you know, for those people who don't know what that is, if you're listening, it's diversity,
inclusion,
and equity.
Or is it
DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay.
So, I mean, what is that really? Because if we just spent $700,000-800,000 on a bureau to create that in our department, I mean, I'm diverse. You know, I want to be included.
Right.
I want equity. You know, I mean, I'm different than everyone else who went and got a shot.
Yeah.
You know, I'm everyone else that. So how come you're excluding me? You know, but we're looking for to me, it's almost like how we had affirmative action back in the 80s and the 90s, right? And we're segregating people based on their class, right? Their race, their whatever. And now we create this DEI. We're dividing even more when in reality, let's wipe all of that crap out, take away a bell curve, and let's just, this career, it's not like when you have a bad day, it's not like you're in the office and you hit your finger in the stapler. If you have a bad day, you die.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Your engine buddy, your truckie dies.
Yeah.
That's a bad day.
Yeah.
You know, that kid that was trapped in that house that you were afraid to go into, or I mean, we all make mistakes. We're not perfect. That's for sure, you know, but so there's a very specific caliber that needs to be maintained, right? And we have those standards, and standards are being lowered. I mean, we're having standards lowered like crazy in our department, you know, for ladders and things like that.
It's so dangerous.
So we're not only are we putting, because I rely on you, right? I mean, I have faith and belief that you are going to be able to do your job. I know I've worked around you, and I know that we're gonna. Well, I haven't worked around you, but you know, as a firefighter, you've been in that space for this amount of time, and you can do the job.
Right.
And when we have people where we've lowered the standards and they don't know what they're getting into, and on and on and on, I'm counting on you to get me home, just like my girlfriend, my kids, my wife, whatever it is, wants me to come home the next day. So I'm not only relying on my skill set, but I'm relying on you, right? Because on that engine, there's 4 of us. We're 25% of that rig, of that company. And so when you take 25% of that out, now, man, that's a struggle bus.
Huge
right?
struggle.
So
You said so much to unpack, but I mean, I agree 100% with everything you said. And, when it comes to this DEI and all these different they're trying to bring in, like, people don't understand in our job, like, that none of that should matter. That's why I want to say none of that should even be there because, again, this is a unique career field. And when you call, we don't care about your color, your religion, whether you're vaccinated, we don't care whether you're destitute.
Nope.
You're the richest person in the world. We will treat you the same. We will do whatever it takes to help you. And that's what's so beautiful about this job is that we can bring so many people in that are qualified and meet the standard. They could worship Satan. They could be Buddhist. They could be Christian. They can be atheist. They can be whatever. But when we step on that rig and we put the uniform on, we're a team. We're one, and we're here to serve the public and protect our communities. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And what's happening with all that is now you're bringing the standards down and you're creating all this disruption. You're bringing the service model down. Not only are we at risk, but people don't understand. Now your citizens are at risk. The citizens who are paying taxes that are paying these people.
Yes.
So that's what that subject gets me sometimes because at least when we all got in, the standards that we had were tough.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to have clean records. You have to volunteer, go to paramedic. I mean, to become a firefighter, there's so much things that you have to do if you don't get hired by a big department right away, right? I mean, you want to have a good resume, but there's so many things we have to do that are hard, that are a giving of your free time that you sacrifice to get in. And now it's like, it doesn't matter. We're just going to let you. And that's why I wonder, like with Mark, it's Mark, right? The engineer? Matt. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the engineer, you got a person who's willing to work. 15 years of experience. That's something that that's invaluable.
Yeah.
The experience that you're just throwing away that you can't just give somebody right away when they're hired. And when I say that, I'm talking about someone for 15 years who has worked through the ranks, gone through all the training courses, who has seen the fires, who's been on the cut and rescues, who's been on the roof, who's done the medical aids. Now he can come in and he's imparting that knowledge on the younger generation coming up, and he wants to work, which I'm sure there's more. And you're saying, no, sorry, it's gone. It doesn't make any sense.
We'll just hire another person.
Yeah, we'll just hire. It's not how it works in the fire service.
Oh, I know. Well, and think about that. So, I mean, and it just brought to light something for me as well. It's really interesting because, you've got COVID. We lost people through that have left, didn't want any part of it, retired early, so on and so forth. Then we have the standard attrition, right? We've got all the guys that are leaving because they've timed out, right? And that's a big number for us. I don't know, 300, 400, 500 something in the next year and a half that are going to be leaving. We can't hire that fast. We're in a sinking ship in that aspect. And the other thing is, so what? We hired 300 new people. What's it like to train 300 rookies?
So
and then let's just say they get off of probation.
Right.
In our job at LAFD, the mentality has been that, you don't sit in a recliner until you got 5 years on, right? There's enough stuff for you to be doing every day, studying this, learning, all the positions, acting, getting certified to pump, to drive, to tiller, whatever it is, all these different things, right? So that guy off of probation or that 1 year firefighter is still
working their butt off.
A fledgling. And they haven't, if you're at a slower station, you don't have 15 years worth of fires and rescues and medical aids and all that stuff.
I've been on 16 years and I still barely sit in recliners, dude. And that's just because we're busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like there is
By
always
default.
stuff to do. Yeah.
Fire prevention. I mean, you name it, it's insane. And, then we got to cook too, right? But I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I don't know if you guys want me to mention any other podcasts.
No, go ahead.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you guys have listened to the Grab Lives podcast.
We had them on here.
Perfect. I missed that episode.
Friend. He's a good friend. Yeah,
okay, so did you guys hear the one with Bo Porter?
Yes.
Okay, so I was listening to that, and he's a unique individual. If we had a fire department of Bo Porters, we'd have It would be unbelievable. But what happens, for a multitude of reasons, is that guy loves to teach and train, right? And so you think about that. Anybody that's worked as a rookie for him or whatever, it's not going to be easy. But at the same time, you're going to learn an invaluable amount of information, right? And that, I think there's a lot of that that's missing. Guys just, for again, a multitude of reasons, guys get burnt out, and everybody's in that burnout phase right now, right?
Yes.
And when you're constantly hiring or trying to hire, and it's like, man, now I got to deal with a rookie and so on and so forth. I mean, LAFD is blessed to have a guy like that sits in that space, and that's his jam, right? Is to literally teach, and because it's hard to teach, right? I mean, not everybody's a teacher, but that's our job as well, is to teach the new people. And so, if more guys would step into that space and really, learn from individuals like that and push that space forward, it would be a different department as well.
Different. And I'm glad you brought up Grab Life's podcast. They're good dudes. They're doing good things there. Had them on. We've been supporting them.
Yeah.
We've actually been helping them too, give them advice. I mean, I tell everyone, please listen to Grab Life's podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what is the next step now for Matt? What's the next, I'm sure, I don't want to get into too many legal proceedings because I'm sure there's things happening behind the scene, but what is going to be the next step for him?
He's moving in a space, talking to his attorneys, looking at next steps. It was a sad day in the fire service to lose Matt Mamone over this, especially, I'm sure you guys saw that article that came out in the LA Times this week regarding all of the individuals that have kept their job for crimes, have done things. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, but this is a hard topic to talk about, because we want to think that, we don't want anybody to think that, but there's bad apples everywhere. Right?
Any job.
PD, it doesn't matter, the office, wherever. Of
course.
So we're all people, and we're just a microcosm of society. So yeah, we got some bad apples in and that should be dealt with. But unfortunately, or, great, maybe they've changed their ways and so on and so forth. And I don't know who they all are or anything like that. But when you have an article that comes out like that and it shines, I mean, to me, light is the best disinfectant, right?
Yeah.
And truth.
Yes.
And truth will set you free. Yeah. And so, to show that these individuals have kept their jobs for these types of things, and then you have an outstanding employee who's never been disciplined in his career and has worked through the ranks and promoted, and then is terminated over his right to choose and, not wanting to put an experimental drug into his body, which, by the way, is illegal.
Yep.
Hit that one again.
Yeah, I was like,
I love it, man. So, is a tragedy. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, it shows a loss of integrity by individuals who have the right to make those choices, right? And I'm referring to the gold badges that sit on those boards. You have the ability to make a statement and stand for what's right. Again, you don't have to agree with what he did, but you need to listen to the evidence that was put in. Well, that was attempted to put in. That was one of the things, is nothing was allowed to be brought. They didn't want to talk about anything. I mean, I wish it was videotaped, because it's supposed to be fair and impartial, and it was anything but that. It was a travesty.
Well, those chiefs, I would be, if I was one of them, I'd be a little nervous right now, because I would imagine he could probably go after each one of them individually, and then as the department as a whole. So it's amazing that the Chiefs would even do that. It's almost like, did you forget where you came from?
But at what point is it not a defamation case?
Right.
You know I mean, someone with a clear background, that's right. Whether or not they're positive, whether it doesn't even matter if they're, which I'm sure he's a fantastic person, right? And a great coworker and leader in his own right. But let's say it wasn't even that, just a solid person. How do you walk away from that by getting fired for, and again, because I agree, it's an experimental drug and your choice and all that stuff, we've covered a lot. How do you walk away from that and not be like, dude, this you just put on a pedestal to the public in front of everybody that I'm a bad employee, that I have, because you know how it works. You know, it's not that, oh, just disagreement, they had to part ways. It's like, you know, rebellious firefighter chooses to not do this and puts himself and the public and everyone at danger.
Yeah.
Right? Is how that gets spun. And now this guy's got to figure out, which he does not want to go through. No one wants to be going through this.
Stress on your life.
And your family, your life, your loved ones, the people around you, financially. I mean, hey, this state ain't cheap. What are you going to do? You know? And it's like, I don't know, when I hear that, it just makes me sick to my stomach. And the individuals surrounding that, all I'll say is, you know, one, you have to live with your choices that you make as a leadership position.
Absolutely.
You have to. And if you can look at yourself in the mirror and be okay with destroying someone's life, well, I can't associate. I don't know.
They don't care.
I don't know that fucking feeling, dude.
No,
I don't know it, and it's terrible to hear that kind of. Sorry for cursing. It
is terrible, and it's wrong because it's almost like the almighty dollar, right? They got gold badges and they're trying to protect their spot and their retirement and do their thing. And I've heard this multiple times. Well, hey, I have a boss. Okay, but you're supposed to be taking care of us. And it's like our union leaders, our union that we pay into, will fight for people. I'll be real, that get DUIs, that do multiple things off duty that are illegal and get arrested. You'll fight for them, but you're not going to fight for this guy. I think the union should be ashamed of themselves, especially the president. Like, you're elected, dude. You're supposed to be in there fighting for me, for us, for Matt. Speaking of which, I might have heard some things. Your president might be a little confrontational. Just a little bit. Just a little confrontational.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
We don't have to go into any specifics, but yeah, it's it. When I kind of heard some of that story, I was like, really?
Yeah, there was an incident just after the Board of Rights hearing, actually literally at the chiefs were still sitting in their seat at that point, and I had made a comment to him, and he didn't like the comment, and he
got upset.
Got in a very close personal space.
A little aggressive?
Yes. Space with me. And then...
It's great leadership right there.
Actually to another member, but he was an engineer that was terminated as well. So, you know, when it's sad from the standpoint that, you know, like I go back to what I said before, in the world and in the fire service, we're lacking leadership.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're in that position in leadership in the department and you're a union president or a board member or whatever, and you're stepping into that space, that's a sad day because, you know, again, it's all, to me, I'm seeing the fire service in a death spiral right now. And, you know, I don't know when, you know, we're actually having next week. So next week there's another Board of Rights.
For another person?
A 40-year firefighter, Timothy Hampson.
Wow.
And it's Tuesday and Friday. Friday will be his decision. It's the last day. Tuesday's the last day. Friday will be the decision of what they're going to do with him. But we're going to be holding a candlelight vigil outside of City Hall.
Really?
For the loss of engineer Matt Mamone, and the death of integrity in the fire service, or especially in the LAFD, I'll say.
Wow.
And then we're also going to be holding at that time a prayer vigil for Timothy Hampson.
Okay.
What day is that going to be
on? Friday. That's going to be, what day is that?
This Friday? Or next to the 19th, or the 12th or the 19th?
12th.
The 12th.
Yeah.
That's my birthday. Yeah.
Hey!
Happy birthday.
Birthday, big guy.
Well, it's not as important as this, dude. So that's awesome.
But we're going to put that out here in the next day or so.
Okay.
Good.
So it'll be at 9 a.m. City Hall East.
Okay.
We'll put all the details out on that.
So for Matt and Timothy and these, I mean, I'm sure they have their own private lawyers, whatever. But I'm sure they have support from you.
Yes.
Do they have support? What other organizations can we put out here that are supporting this right now, supporting them to help them get through this?
So that's kind of that's a good segue, actually. So, Firefighters for Freedom, we should never have been here. We were created out of COVID, right? We stepped into this space because we felt that our union was lacking in what they were doing. There was no voice. No one wanted to hear through COVID, right? And so we pushed back against the mandate. We created our 501c3, and then we also built out a national organization, which we have, I think it's about 21 chapters right now.
Wow.
So in that space,
Oh, baby.
Everything has been about, helping individuals navigate that space, right? The best way possible, what they feel is good on their conscience. If you wanted to take an exemption, fine. This is the possibilities that can happen. We lay all the options out on the table and let's talk about all these different things. No different than, we have members that have been vaccinated, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. If you want to go into that space, just make educated decisions, right, on this whole thing. So that's taken up a big space of this. But one of the things that recently, I've been struggling with and thinking about and have brought to the board, is where are we going? What are we doing? Mm-hmm. To me, I don't want to say a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Well, my other ear itches now.
Get that hair, bro. Get that.
Hey, that happens, man. Now,
Oh, I know, dude.
as you get older,
Yes,
it starts
sir.
growing out of everywhere.
Just made the same problem, bro.
So anyway, so it's like, you know what? In traveling around, speaking to our different chapters, different fire departments throughout the country, so on and so forth, and let me ask you guys this question.
Yeah.
You guys have both been in the fire service for a number of years. When you came on, what was the one thing that everybody would always tell you? What's first? What comes first?
Family first.
Family first, right?
Family first.
And the fire family, right, was big, right? That was
Huge.
big.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say in the past 10 years, it's died. There is no fire family. We're living under the illusion of, hey, brother,
I agree with that. 100%.
I'm there for you.
Yeah.
I can tell you it's not true. Firsthand experience, and not because everybody thinks I'm an a-hole, but I was off sick for 2.5 years, and the amount of people that reached out to me was non-existent through some extremely struggling times. I had a lot of cognitive issues, and there was a lot of struggle, and I had a lot of things going on in my life at that time, and that's a whole nother issue. But, and then from being off, from COVID now, for standing up for the right thing. Mm-hmm. And so in talking to people, we were in Northern California and we had about 50 people in the room from about 20 different departments speaking. And I talked about fire family and everybody literally looked like bobbleheads. They all were saying the same thing. It's not there. It's gone. What happened? And so to me, that thought process is, you know what? We have a brand. We have an organization. We have a platform, and we're here standing in truth. And I feel that we have the ability to bring back that fire family, to step into that space where we create community, right? Because if you're a lone wolf and you're out there, at some point you're going to need help with something, right? Yeah. And so if you don't have a community to go to and you don't have a family to talk to, then bad things happen. Mm-hmm. And you don't succeed. Mm-hmm. So the thought process was, how do we do that? Well, it's easy, man. We create it. We make it happen again. Let's make the fire service great again. For a lack of better, whatever.
It's a coin slogan. It'll probably go. Fire service yet again.
Right? Yeah. So, but to that point, it's like, okay, well, let's create some things. Let's think of some ideas and ways to make that happen. So, out of COVID, there's been some amazing things that have happened organizations have evolved like ours that want to see people, want to help the fire service, right? Like I talked about, we've all struggled. We've all seen bad things. We've all dealt with things. And one of the main things right now that everybody's dealing with is mental health in the fire service.
Yeah, it's huge.
So, we have Grab Lives, right? We talked about that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, so we had, I don't know if you guys know who Next Rung is.
That sounds really familiar.
So Next Rung does mental health stuff.
Okay.
Counseling.
Okay.
They help pay for guys to get treatment as well.
Okay. Good.
They're firefighter based. They're here out of Charlie Brown runs that out of Glendale. He's a Glendale firefighter. And they really stepped up to the plate for us in COVID because, our in our department, our mental health services was extremely lacking. We couldn't get anyone on the phone. We had a lot of people that were really struggling. And so people reached out to us. I need help, So we would get them help.
I think that's huge that people reach out to you. That's got to say that should say a lot to you.
Yeah,
that should say a lot.
It's a good feeling, because again, I want to help people. We all want to help people. It's in our DNA, right? Yeah. And so, for me, it's like, okay, how do we create this now? So we've got partnerships with a lot of these different groups, and what we're doing now is we're going to put this on our website, on our partnership. So if you're a 501c that is into helping the fire service in whatever way. We've got mental health is a big thing that we're dealing with, and there's a lot of different programs. A lot of people don't resonate with just sitting in a room talking to someone. We've got recreational therapy that we do as well. Hold the line fly fishing. John Engel, he works for a fire department as well. He started sponsoring these trips on all his own to get people out into the wilderness, right? To get their brain and with a like-minded organization.
I love it. Yes.
Sit around the campfire and talk and, and
so healthy for you.
So all of these things. So we're bringing these organizations together and we're going to be putting them on our page as partners in this aspect. And then we're also going to be looking for sponsors, businesses that believe in first responders.
Okay.
And then we're also going to start promoting firefighter-owned businesses, right?
I love it.
And really be like the single place where you're like, man, I need something. I'm looking for something. I'm looking for community. Where can I go? And you can go to Firefighters for Freedom, and we're going to have this stuff built out. And what we're looking at as well is a members-only page. So you'll be vetted, through a company that will check your ID to make sure that you're a firefighter so that we don't have, right? One of the things, especially in mental health, that we deal with is, suck it up, right? Don't be a little bitch, whatever whatever terminology you want to use, it's out there.
That's exactly.
So, and I mean, I can speak firsthand experience. To me, I went through some really rough times, and I really didn't have that. I had men's group through the church helped me quite a bit in realizing some issues and so on and so forth. But, to me, the way I look at it, there's this box inside of us, right? This black box. And we go on all these calls and we deal with these things. And then we take those calls and we put it inside of that box. And then we wrap that son of a bitch up with a chain. And now we're walking around with all these monsters inside.
And it will come out eventually.
Yeah. And so what happens, doesn't matter how thick you make that box and what you make it out of, you put enough monsters in there and over time they're scratching, right, at the inside of that box. And now there's a little hole and it starts to seep out, right, into that space. And what is that? Whether it's gambling or drugs or alcohol or porn or abuse, you name it, pick the vice. It comes out and now our families are suffering. Not only are we suffering, but our families are suffering because we didn't have the ability to step in that space. Nobody was there for us, or we felt that it was unmanly, right? Mm-hmm. Dude, I can't even tell you. Half the time I'm on an interview, within the first 30 seconds, I'm crying now as I'm like, and I'm like, oh, yeah, set your watch, here it goes.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I'm cool with that. I don't care, because it's okay to show emotion. I'm a human being, man. I'm not a robot. And we've been trained to be that. And it's destroying us and our families and our kids and creating a lot of problems. So back to where I was going with that is, we're creating a members only section on there that you'll be vetted. And then inside of there, we're going to have different forums. And so whether, you know, it's going to be on PTSD, it's alcohol, drugs, you know, whatever those things. But then we're also going to have things for, you know, like a union page, right? Issues you're dealing with your union. Issues, you know, let's say we got one for ventilation, whatever, you know, we'll create these forums and have moderators that will be able to, like, look, I work for LAFD. I mean, our operations and everything, right? They've been tier 1. Everybody looks to a lot of what we do, right? Standard.
You're the roof guys.
Yeah.
Right. So
What do they got up there?
Yeah.
So think about that, right? We all work in the fire service, but we have no idea what's going on outside of the four walls. We're siloed. Yeah. So LA City, I mean, look at all the little departments around us. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what's going on there.
Right.
I have no idea what's going on in Northern California or the East Coast or whatever. So in these forums now, we have the ability for individuals in the same space to speak out on issues that they're dealing with. This isn't the kitchen table where you're going to sit there and just bitch and complain. Mm-hmm. This is where you go in with an issue, and now we have all the problem solvers there. And hey man, I've been dealing with this. Oh, hey, I was dealing with the same thing, you know, and these are the solutions that I came up with, right? Yeah. And now, whether you're anonymous with, you know, your username or whatever, you want to reach out to that individual, you're creating that fire family again, right?
Oh, yes.
You're creating that brotherhood again. I have a space to go where I can talk to somebody who knows what the hell I'm dealing with, and I don't have to be worried about my department finding out or whatever, right? Yeah. So you're creating that space for these individuals to step into. You know, we're looking at a travel section, right? It's like, how many firefighters go on vacation? Right?
Mm-hmm. A lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to Idaho, right? I want to go fishing up there for 2 weeks. I'm going to be going through. Hey, I've got a place you can stay. You know, stay the night in my room at my house or whatever. You don't have to. A, it's saving you money. B, it's another fireman, right? It's another firefighter. I know it's a good space. I can actually meet somebody. Or I'm going to be in Idaho for 2 weeks. What are the good places to go? And then you can meet up with other families there, right? And the like-mindedness, and they can tell you, or you're moving and you want information on an area, whatever it is, right? That family is being rebuilt, and that sense of community, so that, you know, it makes the fire service a desirable place. It makes it great again, right? Yeah. And
Dude,
so
that's one. That sounds awesome. I really hope that you move forward with that, because the opportunity, and you rifled off a handful of things of what that implies, right? As far as whether it's personal travel issues, technical, actual work related stuff, you know, that's so rad. And have like a forum where you don't have to feel like, maybe I shouldn't ask this question, because you don't know who the people are you're talking about. But if it's a vetted process and they're coming from other fire departments, that's rad. Yeah. And then, but I wanted to key in on, or touch on one thing. And I agree with you. The fire family, that feeling, or maybe wherever you're at in your career, what you thought it once was, what it's turned into, and where we're at now, I think they're all different things, right? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it boils down to the fact it's like you can, like you said this earlier, which I thought was great. You can only control your area, right? Mm-hmm. But in that area, you can help influence that positivity and that family orientation as best you can. And it doesn't matter if you're, a 1-year firefighter or a battalion chief and up, right? So it's like, that's where the accountability piece, because when you said, you're like, what's the first thing you said about being a firefighter? Use family. I honestly, the first thing that popped in my head was integrity. Yeah. You know, and the reason, and I know it's not.
I need a gong. Yeah, I don't know if you can see me or not, but
it's not. But those are, I mean, they're synonymous. The family, integrity, loyalty, they're all, 1, 2, 3, pretty much, right?
That's number one.
But those things, right? Standing up, doing the right thing when no one's looking. Right, doing that, we all share that similar feeling, Now, I'm not saying that I'm the greatest at it either. No. I'm just saying that that's something that we can utilize these traits that we have to influence those others around. And even though I would agree completely that family thing, not screwing your buddy and all this kind of typical behavior that I'm sure we have hundreds of different stories like this, but we can help make it better. Right, even on and wherever you work, mm-hmm. even on that level, and then hopefully, like you said, it's a not a, I don't know if a chasm, but a wave, right? The butterfly effect, right? You impact the area you're around, and hopefully that moves on, moves out. And I think that we all still have that ability to do that. You know, now different functions like what you're talking about, that the website, that's radical. You know, and hopefully you can bridge departments like
That's the whole
to
idea.
get together, right? So it's not just where you work, where we work, where they work, whoever, right? You know, kind of like a bigger scale, because the reality is that most of us are pretty freaking the same. And, you know, that's not a DEI thing.
No.
But I'm just kidding. I was trying to think of something funny earlier, but I
thought it was fun.
yeah, no, I was like, did you guys ever seen the Genderbread Man? You ever see that picture?
Bread man, get out of here. That's real.
That's a real thing. That it's a tool, like a picture for. Anyway, it's all I'm getting at is that the building up the family unit, and not just in your personal family, but I mean, dude, everyone is your personal family.
Yeah.
The people that you're working with and around, and it's so important to be able to do that and, you know, have that community while you're at work. And I think that's so awesome to hear that there's going to be something like I can't wait till that jumps up. I'll for sure be on there.
I can't either. It's just it's a massive project.
Oh, it's a lot of work.
huge,
I
dude.
get you. I mean, it's. I just want to say, Jeff, because we're going to wrap this up, but you know, you, ZZ, Burmeister, Samama, there's so many guys on here. I want to acknowledge that what you're doing and where you're going with Firefighters for Freedom. You can't put a price tag on that, man. You talked about hard times that you went through. Jordan and I have been friends pretty much our whole careers. We got, what, 15, 16 years here.
Oh.
And I can tell you right now, there were times, I remember a distinct time, he and I were going through a very difficult time, and we had overtime. We were together, I think, in our medic dorm at our old department.
Oh.
We were both in tears. And I remember he was in a rough place, and I was in a rough place, but I just remember coming together and the comfort in that, and knowing, like, you know, I'm not suffering alone, and telling him, I'm going to be here for you, dude. We're going to get through this. I know you're going to be here for me. Like, that is, it moves mountains, man.
It does.
And I'm a huge proponent on mental health, and I still go to therapy. I go once a week, and I encourage people to do it a lot. And just to this podcast, you know, I've had a lot of first responders reach out, and about, I want to say roughly 10 now I've gave them numbers to go, who to see and what to do to get free service and for help, and it's changed their lives, and it's huge. So what you're doing and where you're going with Firefighters for Freedom is amazing. And I'm a huge believer. I'm a believer, period. I have my own faith. We always talk about it. I talk about it here. It's definitely grittier. I'm a prodigal son. Okay, I've made some massive mistakes, but
You'd be lying if you didn't.
And I tell people, I'm like, look, man, Jesus was on earth with sailors. You don't think they were rough and gritty dudes? Trust me, they were. But in my faith and what we do in this job and how this is such a calling, we need people to stand up for us. I've had times where I'm like, I need help. And I think it's amazing. You're going to have a place for not just people in LAFD, but departments all over.
Yeah. And
you're going to have one central spot. That's huge, huge. And bringing back that family, you know, you can't put a price tag on it, Jeff. Or John, sorry. I want to call you Jeff. John.
That's right.
He moonlights as Jeff.
Yeah.
On Sundays.
Yeah, I have so much going on in my head. I always get all these names. I'm like, oh my God. John. No, what you're doing is amazing. We're going to support you.
Awesome.
And I want people on here to know, like, you can support them. We'll put out your website. We're going to put these video clips out, and whatever we can do to help there for you. We want to be involved. And, you know, I hope that when people listen to this, they know it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to stand up for yourself, because you have to be an advocate for yourself. You have to.
That's crucial, you know, and one of the things that people really don't realize, and I think, you have to take accountability for your actions.
Yeah.
Everything, right or wrong, right? It doesn't matter, you know, if you go through a divorce or whatever, you can't just sit there and be like, it's all the other person, right? No, I've been through 2 divorces, right? Okay. And I played a part in those. Yeah. It's part, you know, my responsibility. So it doesn't matter. Everything we do, we have to be responsible for. Yeah. Take responsibility for that. But the thing that's really important, I think, is that you need to be able to love yourself, right? Because if you can't be honest, and I mean brutally honest with yourself, where you screwed up, what you haven't done right, and own that, and then say, okay, give yourself that same grace, right?
Yeah.
That you would give to others.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
if we're going down the Christian route, right? Christ died on the cross. He gave his life and sacrificed that and gives us grace every day, no matter what we do, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to give ourselves that same grace. Hey, man, I screwed up. Okay, great. That's a lesson for me to learn what not to do next.
Yeah.
And own it.
Yeah.
And then step into that next space, because you can't pour out into others unless you're solid yourself. So
Very good.
You know,
Very
I mean,
good.
we can't go home to our families and be good to them
No.
if we're in a bad space.
Dude, own it.
Yeah.
You said it. It's exactly that, and that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and people's personalities differ, and some people have a harder time with that than others. And I can attest to myself. I had a hard time when I was younger. You know, admitting that you're wrong. Are you kidding me? I think that's probably
Absolutely.
pretty common.
Yeah. Especially in this job.
Yeah, but the reality is that the sooner you can realize that, one, you either don't know everything, not everything you do is right, and it's all good, but just know that, like, as long as you're trying to better that and better the people around you and better for yourself, those are all good steps moving forward, you know? And by doing that, you set the precedent of the people that you're around. You are inadvertently being that leader in that way. And I think it just makes the, folks around you better. And then honestly, like, we'll open up, like maybe someone you are working with, you never know, is having problems in various amounts of ways. And, those little things go a long way and can get them going. Like, it's awesome hearing that, Tim, with, helping, guiding people, whether it's towards counseling or other means of healing, and I think that's what it relies on. It relies on people like us, like the people that want to do this, like to, and when I say us, I always feel weird saying like that. I'm like, follow me, but at the end of the day, like that's the only way that it's going to get better.
Right.
And actually, I keep pulling this up because I want to say the quote, because like I feel like your guys' organization, like, this represents it in a very strong way. And it's a quote from Gandhi, and just kind of how it was created and whatnot. But it's like, at first they're going to ignore you, and then they're going to laugh at you, and then they might even fight you, but that's when you win. And it's, just like, to me, that meaning standing up for what you believe in, what is right. And, sometimes you can't care what other people think, and you got to be strong in that, because when you're, when you have the information, you have the feeling, you have the belief, that's when it's done. And the struggle is crazy, I'm sure. And you can attest to that for sure. And I just think, it's amazing. I don't want to say story because it's not done written, you know what I mean? But the process of it, I think you inspire a lot of people. You and the guys, everyone we've met through Firefighters for Freedom have been nothing but the same, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I'm a firm believer too that nothing happens by accident, man.
No.
I think there's a reason you're on this route. Firefighters for Freedom are on this route, and it might be a lot bigger and better than what you left. You know what I'm saying? Or what's even behind you.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, I could have sat in that space of, why am I off work without pay? Why am I, why is the city coming after me like this? Why do I? No, man, these things are all happening for me, for a reason, for all of us, right? And we just have to look at that and be able to say, what is it that what lesson is there for me in this to learn, and how do I make things better moving forward, right? Because one of the, at least on our department, is leave it better than you found it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, let's just look at overhaul, for example, right? You go in, place is burnt to a crisp, and you go in and you shovel out everything, and holy mackerel, it's nicer sometimes than before the fire started.
I know, right? It was the 3 minutes of fun for 4 hours overall.
Right.
But it's reality.
But this is no different. And that's kind of the space where my head's at, is like, hey, let's make this fire department, this fire service, right? This isn't about LAFD, because this is systemic all across the country. And I realize that from traveling and talking and so on and so forth, so, and everybody feels the same way. They're in that same place, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to go, where to go. And there is no community. So let's build that community and just create greatness again,
John, you are an amazing human, my friend. I'm so glad that we have come to know each other. I love following you. I love seeing what's happening. And on this little stand right here, there is a journal. And it's also our challenge coin. In fact, the challenge coin is a quote from Mark Twain. To most important days of your life, when you're born, when you find out why, I think you're there, my friend. That journal, Epic Journey, is from a man named Dustin Durnford, or Preston Durnford. He has I believe it's a 501c3 now, called Epic Journey. And he came from addiction and a lot of bad things in his family and suicide. And he takes people out four-wheeling, skydiving. He's a skydiver like me. I'm going to link him up with you guys.
Okay.
He's giving us about 50 to 60 of these journals that he wrote and did himself.
Nice.
For us, for people like us, and people dealing with things. I think he will give you some to start giving out. As
well, let's make that happen.
Well. So I will link that up with you guys. He's a great dude. Very, very great dude.
I appreciate it. I mean, you guys have been nothing but generous hosts, from the first time I was on, and then you guys had Bahamas Mama on.
Oh, man. Dude. His Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah.
Love that guy,
Keeping it fresh.
Yes, pure. He's a cartoon character.
Oh, yeah.
And whatever. And I mean, you guys have been to a lot of our events and, things that we put on, rallies and speaking event, whatever, and you've supported us and our mission of freedom and truth, and so that really is just fantastic, and again, you guys are both from the fire service, so anybody that that's struggling in some way or another, or is looking for community, or has a firefighter owned business, or wants to support, or let's build this thing. And this is for everyone out there that, if three of you watch it, well, hopefully, one person that you could send our way, but I know you guys have a way bigger following than three. I'm just saying, because I'm on here. They're probably like, I'm going to turn that.
No, you're good.
So, again, it takes a community to build a community. It can't be done by one person or 10 people, right? So those resources being brought to the table. One quick note, I know you guys want to wrap this up, is that also on Sunday evenings, we're going to start our own podcast.
Very good.
On IG.
Okay.
For right now.
Good.
6 or 7 o'clock, it's the end of the week. People are winding down. They have a lot to do. Beginning of their new week, give them things to think about, so on and so forth. And it's going to be dealing with not only the fire, but just kind of everything we talked about here, right?
Okay.
And issues on how to. The whole idea is to stop people from complaining, right? We have two ways we can look at things, like I said, as a problem or a challenge. Problems are heavy, they're burdensome, so on and so forth. Challenges challenge us to step up to the plate and come up with a solution. And as firefighters, that's what we do. We need to get out of the negative mindset, shift our focus into the positive. And so we want to bring that so people can tune in and just look at it and actually be interactive, right? Because a lot of the podcasts are non-interactive. So on IG, we have the ability, you want to ask a question? Hey, I'm not sitting here with rehearsed questions. I'll answer your question the best I can, or we can discuss something, right? And so
that's awesome.
It's kind of,
I think it's great, man. Do it.
It's coming up soon.
Yeah, whatever you guys need.
That starts.
Let us know.
Bodies.
Does that start? You said it's going to be on Sundays.
Yeah, it's going to be on Sunday
tonight.
Evenings.
Is there going to be one or
no?
next?
There's not. So we're in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
We're still trying to cement all that down. We're having a board meeting tonight. We're going to talk about all.
Yeah, let us know. We'll blast it too.
Yeah, we'll start
blast it
pushing it. Yeah,
we'll help you out. But dude, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And Fires for Freedom, you guys always have a seat here in this podcast. In my home, your friends, we're going to help as best we can. We also have something about an event I want to talk to you about after I've chatted with Jordan about. I've so far gotten a lot of support, so I think it'll be pretty good. But
we love events.
Yes. John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a great time. Let's get a Let's Going through. You guys ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Let's go. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in. If you liked what you just listened to, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Please follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And a big shout out to Stephen Clark, our sound editor. He's a huge part of this team that is unseen. It's 89 Barbers, our first sponsor. Look good, feel good, be great. That's 2 locations, Orange, California, and Long Beach, California. Book your appointment online, 89barbers.com. Bye, everybody.